So many of these first responders in the Jessica Chambers case were traumatized by what they came across at the side of the road. That 19-year-old woman with burns over 98% of her body. They tried to render aid. Ultimately, Jessica Chambers died at a nearby burn center. Law&Crime senior trial producer Cathy Russon is on scene covering this case for us in Mississippi. And Cathy, I want to bring you into the broadcast here because Sherry Flowers, this witness who was just on the stand before the break, was expected to be a huge part of the state's retrial, trying to seal up exactly where this defendant was between around the time this vehicle was discovered burning and in the moments just before and just after it. Cathy, are you there? Do we have you?
I am. Hi, Aaron.
Okay, so what did you make of Sherry Flowers' testimony? She didn't identify the defendant. She doesn't really remember who she picked up by the side of the road at the most critical time in this case.
Okay, so everyone here in our media group are literally have jaws open and are shaking our heads. This was supposed to be a big moment for the prosecution. She's only the second new witness from the last trial that's testified so far. The first one was the speech pathologist. They just found her, and she was expected to really put the gap of how Quentin could have gotten faster to certain locations that night by this woman giving him a ride. So we all waited for this. She described him as a 19 to 20-year-old, and Tellis was 27 years old. She was never asked to ID Tellis in the courtroom as the man she picked up. It was almost like a completely nothing testimony. As a matter of fact, some people are saying they may help the defense. Now they've put in the juror's mind that maybe some 19-year-old did something that night.
Well, that's the analysis that we had around the table here in New York. And of course, we're looking at this from afar. But look, it would have potentially backfired very, very severely had the prosecution actually asked her to identify him because, bottom line, she couldn't. So it seems to me that the prosecutor was trying to collect a couple of nuggets and say, well, there was some strange individual picked up near the scene, and maybe that strange individual is this particular defendant. But again, how does that actually help the prosecution's case?
Yeah, I don't see it, and I know this case inside and out, so I think jurors are really going to just be kind of shaking their heads like, I'm not sure what that was all about.
It's highly possible that that's what they were doing. Cathy, are you able to watch this from the courtroom, or are you watching from a separate room?
I didn't that testimony. I have been in the courtroom today. The judge is allowing no electronics in the courtroom, and he has the media set up outside under tents.
Okay.
I spent most of my time there, so for that particular testimony, I was not in the courtroom.
Okay. I'm curious, Cathy, what are the reactions from jurors? I mean, are they interested in this? Are they bored? What's the body language?
When I was in there, they were very attentive. They were all facing the witness. Nobody at that point was taking notes. I asked some other reporters that have been there, and they see maybe one or two people, but for the most part, they're not really taking notes. I will say that the cameraman came out just after this testimony, and I asked if there was any reaction in the courtroom, and he said yes. On Quentin's side of the courtroom, there were a few women just shaking their heads and looking like this is ridiculous.
That's not a surprise to us because it's similar to the reaction that many of us had here. We've got to cut away here very quickly, Cathy. So I'm hoping that we can talk a little bit more after this break, or if you don't have to head back in the courtroom. But just to recap for folks watching, the jurors in this case, 7 men, 8 women, 9 individuals on the jury are African-American, 6 are white. Of course, we have a defendant who's African-American accused of killing a Caucasian woman. Jessica Chambers, 19 years old, when she was burned pretty much alive near the side of the road in Mississippi, near where she lived. We will be back right after this quick break.